the 20th Legiones Astartes, the Alpha Legion. Of all the mighty forces of the Imperium commanded during the Great Crusade, there was none so wound about with falsehood, supposition, and paradox as the 20th Legion. Any study of the 20th is fraught with difficulty, contradiction, and deliberate misdirection and uncovering truth. When applied to such a study is a vain hope. This is the case even with a record such as this, compiled with the highest of authorities and most extensive research possible. Perhaps some measure of the truth may be found in the lies of this secret history of the Alpha Legion. The 20th Legion was a highly independent weapon that neither the Emperor nor later the War Master could fully control. It was a twisting, serpentine thing of formless shadows, as dangerous and venomous as the multi-headed monster of ancient myth that in latter days became its full sigil. As a force dedicated to the arts of guile, subterfuge, infiltration, and counterintelligence, the Legion's covert efforts were intended to sow dismay and dismantle a foe's resolve and defenses piecemeal before landing an overwhelming killing blow, utilizing every one of the myriad weapons and war machines granted the Legiones Astartes. Although, in many cases, these protracted and complex operations were the means and ends also. For the Legion was both unpredictable and delighted in causing strife. Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. Y'all better enjoy this purple and blue hair, because probably in the middle of next week, it's coming out. I'll probably wear my fro for a couple of weeks, because the hair just needs a break from being braided. Black hair is fun. My husband getting a whole education. And black hair, it's great. I love changing my hair. It's one of those things you can change and it's not permanent. Hair grows back in most cases. That's what Brad Mondo always says. It grows back. But no, I love coloring my hair. My next hair color, I've already picked it out. It's insane. It's so mermaidy. I'm very excited about it. I'm not even sure it's really a fall color, but meh. But I like bright. But let's talk about one of my favorite legions. I will never build an army for this legion, but the lore of the Alpha Legion it intrigues me so. So here are our boys. Is this Alpharius? Is this Omegon? We'll get into it in a second. But you should notice something about them that's unique among legions. What do you see? Do you see it? Bing! Turn the page. They're clones of each other. So the Alpha Legion is very unique amongst legions. And I don't often read more out of these books because this belongs to the Black Library. She ain't trying to get no strikes, no nothing. Why are you? Oh, I thought my dog was squeaking. He is sleeping soundly. Y'all want to see him? I'm going to pick up my tripod. Look how cute he is. Some people don't think he ever gets in his bed. He does. Look how cute you are. We just went for our morning walk, so he is knocked out. He's an old boy, but the vet said as long as he keeps walking, you keep walking him, and I do. But we used to go on like 5-mile walks. Now we're doing like a mile or so. He was old man, but he's mommy's old man. I actually adopted, this has nothing to do with Alpha Legion, but I actually adopted him as an adult dog. He was like 8-ish when I got him, and I've had him for 4 years now. So he might be 12, he might be 11, he might be 13. I don't know. But I adopted a senior dog. He's the bestest boy. That had nothing to do with the Alpha Legion. I just thought my dog was squeaking, so I had to look. Anyway, back to the Alpha Legion. So I don't often read more out of this, but they are such a mysterious legion. So for those who are not baptized in much of the lore of Warhammer, with the Legiones Astartes. They are the gene sons of the gene fathers, which are the Primarchs. And in this Primarch series, I'm mostly focusing in on the Primarchs, but the Emperor was out, making war in the galaxy, and he's like, I can't do this by myself. So he made himself some sons. Who's their mother? Science. Science is their mother. It's the future. You can just make people now. But the Emperor basically took a component of himself and put it into each of these Primarchs. That's why they have such distinct personalities and backstories. Because even though the Emperor himself is the longest lived human that we know of, his sons are basically demigods because they are direct descendants. I'm not going to call them clones. They're not clones, but they are gene sons. They have a piece of the Emperor Immortal inside of them that gives them what Primarchs are. Primarchs are the best of our warriors. They're the most charismatic, the most well-spoken, the mightiest minds of battle. Like, they are just the peak of human existence. And I think that's why half the Primarchs fell, is because even though they are the peak of human existence, they're the peak of human existence. Because humans at our core are flawed. That's what makes us human. Isn't it like every single alien story when somebody comes to Earth and they're like, the humans aren't perfect, we're going to destroy you. And we're like, no, it's our imperfections that make us great. Like every story of like challenging the gods is like, I know we're not perfect. It's okay. That's what makes humans wonderful. Our imperfections are part of this tapestry that is humanity. And the Primarchs were never meant to fall. That's why the Emperor created direct sons that were scattered about the stars, intentionally or unintentionally. Bombastic side eye. If you know, you know. But Games Workshop, the Black Library, they were very smart in doing that because what they did was create a natural playing field of diversity. So these are the legions that we play in the tabletop game. I got into Warhammer for the lore. Now I'm into the game. And good lord, she went all the way in. She just dove right in. But I've been reading the books for 30 years at this point. Love all of them. Just good stuff. But when you read the lore, what you realize is just how clever they were. And by intentionally dividing the Primarchs into different worlds, they all basically have different cultural upbringings. So when you are trying to investigate a legion to play as your army, people tend to gravitate toward the legion that they see themselves in, basically, or they align with the ideals and mores of that legion that have been established in the lore. That was so clever because now there's no shoehorning in of things. It's just, no, they were scattered across the galaxy, and of course the humans would establish many, many cultures across the galaxy over thousands of years of separation. So just chef's kiss to that. Black Library, very smart way to encourage diversity without being annoying. And then there's actually two legions, the Lost Legions, that we don't speak of, whose statues have been removed from the great halls of the palace and the Himalayan mountains. She's read way too much of this. But those two legions basically are left open. In the lore, they did something bad, but they're basically left open for people to create their own armies. So clever. And being that the Primarchs each have a unique attribute to them, example, Fulgrim is Fulgrim and Lorgar are my favorite Primarchs by far, because they represent humans at their most human. Lorgar being someone who just wanted his love and adoration to be acknowledged. It was kicked back and then he went ham. And Fulgrim on this pursuit of preserving all that is humanity, because if they don't do that, what are they fighting for? That was really at his core, and it got corrupted by chaos into a seeking of pleasure versus preservation. Just so much in Warhammer. But those are attributes of humans. Humans have a need to be acknowledged by their parents, and the Emperor of Mankind went to Lorgar, basically, and he lost his mind. Don't reject your kids. They're going to turn into Lorgar. And Fulgrim, who wanted so much to celebrate beauty and pleasure and the good things of life, could not get past the Emperor not trusting his legion as much because they had the gene blight on them that would rear its ugly head once in a while, and he was prevented from being as great as his brothers because of that. And it eventually took hold of him, because if they can't be the most beautiful, then nobody else will be either. So, and even being the only legion allowed to bear the Emperor's name was not enough. They were the only legion to be called the Emperor's children. No, not even Horus's legion could bear that moniker, and he was the war master. So, and then we look at my other two favorite Primarchs, which would be Roboute, who is the most noble of all of his brothers. You'd think it'd be Horus. Horus is the favorite. There's a difference between being the favorite and the best. If you got more than one sibling, you know. But Horus was the favored son because he warred alongside the emperor for a long time. So the emperor knew this son the best. He trusted him the most. He's actually the only son that the emperor said was like a son unto him, which you made them, but only one of them's your son. That's where the fight started. Right there. When you pick out a favorite kid and go to the rest, that's how the fight started. You wonder why these kids ain't getting along? You. Don't do that. Like, if you have a favorite, don't let them know. They don't need to know. I had some of my kids in Taekwondo. I had one in Taekwondo do it, and one in children's church do this. I was at the school a few weeks ago, and I was teaching class, and I had brought my husband and one of my little Taekwondo girls. She was a teenager. She's 15. She's just turned 16 last year, so now she's driving and stuff. And she walked up to me. She puts a little hand on her hip, and she goes, "Aren't you glad to see me?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And she said, "'Cause I'm your favorite." And she just said it as loud and sassy as she could. And I was like, you can't say it out loud. And then one of my friend's kids, who I almost had in children's church, I've known him since he was like 2. And he's, oh my goodness, he's 13 this month. I'm old. But when I was at a backyard barbecue with them, and they had just met my husband when we were dating. And when he introduced himself to my husband, he said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm his favorite." And I was like, you're not supposed to say it. He is, but he's not supposed to say it. So when one of them's the favorite, they know it and they show it. It's just how it is. And then they lord it over the rest. And then you have, Roboute, who's the most noble amongst his brothers. The finest of Primarchs, the model citizen, if you would. Y'all know who that sibling is. What the Hermione Granger are you? Are you even real? I'm a Hermione Granger, to be fair. Yes, I know we hate J.K. Rowling right now. Whatever. Research everyone you love. They're all terrible. There's no one out there who's great. So just ignore. Just ignore. Enjoy the art, ignore. I mean, Picasso. You research some of these like classical artists that we love. You don't want those stories in your head. So, was that me being problematic? I try not to be problematic on this channel, but when you're talking stream of consciousness, it's gonna happen. But yeah, Roboute's the perfect one. The king. The establisher of Imperium Secundus, and was allowed to do it. That's what made it even more of a thing. It's like the emperor knew he established Imperium Secundus and let it happen. And then I also love, of course, Vulcan, which are the Primarchs I've done so far. Vulcan being the one who suffered the most and still didn't yield to chaos. That's what makes his story so amazing, that it's still in humans to be good even under the hardest circumstances. You do not have to let what happens to you control who you are. You can still choose to be better and greater and fight no matter what. And Vulcan, nothing that happened to Vulcan was Vulcan's fault. Vulcan was actually said to be the strongest of the Primarchs, the mightiest of the sons. Like, no one could best him in battle. And yet his brother did his best to break him. And what made me love Roboute, because I was not down with the Ultramarines until I got to the Vulcan novel, was seeing how Roboute reacted to seeing what had been done to his brother, and then seeking vengeance on his behalf. He was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get that crazy curse." I was like, yes, Roboute, yes. So that's when I became a Roboute fan. That when I learned how to say his name correctly. It's not Robot, it's the Roboute. You gotta roll the R. It doesn't work. So many bits of human are scattered throughout these legions. That's why there's so many, because humans are complex. We are complex creatures. That's why we can't look at an instance or a moment and say, I write this person off completely because of this moment. There are some things that we don't come back from. I'm not going to say what those things are because I don't need the algorithm to smite my channel, but you know what those things are. There are things we know as a collective we don't bring people back from, that we lock them away and throw away the key. Those things happen. But for the rest of society, we can't write people off for a moment. We can't write people off for an instant. Each one of these Primarchs represents an extreme of the human condition. And all of us are subject to that extreme. Chaos. I was having this discussion with some folks at the shop last night when we went for brush and banter. We were just talking about the stuff we were painting and Primarchs and stuff like that. But no, it was Monday night at Aeronautica. But chaos is a neutral evil. Chaos was just hanging out. And the Emperor kicked in Chaos's door. The Eldar kicked in Chaos's door. Chaos was like, oh, hey, the warp is our territory. You, all y'all should have seen Wolverine and Deadpool by now. Deadpool and Wolverine. What did Twin Xavier say? I forget her name. She was great. Love her. I wish she was going to be the new baddie because I would come back for her. She's great. The girl who played her, chef's kiss. But you came and peed on my side of the fence. Emperor should have left Chaos alone. Did not leave Chaos alone. Did not tell everybody else about Chaos. Created the seeds of his own demise by not doing that. Parents don't tell kids everything. There are reasons for that. But he should have told these boys about Chaos. You know, if it's time to send the kids to college and you ain't got it, you probably need to have a talk with your kids. You know, if the children are watching the TikToks and the YouTubes and going, oh my goodness, all these people out here have all of this. Look, Junior, that is not real. Let's talk about the realities of money and having and how you get that. There's nothing back here. Okay, there are some things I got because people gave them to me. I have things that were gifted to me back here. But for the most part, I'm going to say 70% of this I purchased myself over 30-something years. So, yeah, it's not free. But Chaos comes in to exploit the human condition. They don't cause people to be corrupted. They just go, oh, this is what you like? You're open to a conversation? Well, I'm open to a conversation. Sit down in my, sit. What can I do for you? And then they do it, and they go all the way in. And there are different reasons that the Primarchs yielded to Chaos. Horus saw a day when the Emperor would no longer need him. So he decided, I will best the Emperor before he gets rid of me. And he convinced other Primarchs of the same thing, that when there is no more war, why do you need an army if there's no war? So we're just going to keep making war forever. And just go hang out in the warp. It's always war in there. If that's what you want. You know, we look at the likes of Lorgar. If you will not accept my love and adoration, someone will. You look at Fulgrim. I will never be good enough or beautiful enough in your eyes. So, I'll be the most beautiful, most terrifying in the universe. Angel Exterminatus. But then that brings us to the Alpha Legion. That's quite an intro. Because if I was ever going to make another army, I'm not. I've got my 4 armies decided, no moss. You have to put limits, or I'm never going to get other stuff painted. I say that now, ask me in 5 years if I paint an Alpha Legion. But today, I'm not doing it, but I do love the lore of this Legion. The Alpha Legion. What makes them so unique amongst the legions? The Ghost Legion. The 20th Legion was established largely in separation from the rest of the Legiones Astartes, and in it generally thought created to a very specific end and purpose. However, what these purposes were remains a mystery. Its gene seed strain was kept in secrecy, though it is known to have had highly successful implantation rates and to be free of flaw. The Legion is also thought to not have expanded beyond a very small contingent of between 1,000 and 2,000 warriors for many of its early years, never having been granted a regional intake on Terra. However, later claims suggest the 20th multiplied in secret and may have in fact been the largest of all legions. These first mysteries would spawn others, and questions would continue to go unanswered, not only about the 20th Legion's methods and nature, but about the use to which it was put in its earliest days. Heads of the Hydra. The Imperialis Logistica could not confirm even the most basic details of the Legion, be it of the Legion's primary spheres of recruitment or even gauge its operating strength. It was a Legion seemingly sprung whole and entire as if from nowhere, complete with tens of thousands of fully equipped legiones and capable of a war fleet that operated with veteran skill. Only Alpharius knew the true extent of his legion and its domains, its strength and its reach, and perhaps he even knew it only perfectly. The Alpha Legion's companies, battalions, and chapters, referred to as harrows and cohorts or instruments in shifting meaning, were formulated and broken down seemingly at the whim of the Legion's commanders, the chain of command appearing fluid and highly decentralized. A harrow master, a master strategist, would hold ultimate command of a war zone, but specialists such as siege masters or vigilators were deferred to fields of expertise. Under these distinct units was expected to operate as a self-motivated, self-governing cell without need of exterior command, and expected to display initiative and pursuit, its part in a wider battle plan under the cognizance and in any way it judged to be expedient. And each warrior of the Legion was trained to excel in battlefield and strategic awareness. So 2 things here. 1, they're called the Ghost Legion. Alpharius Omegon is the most mysterious of the Primarchs. They intentionally, it, the entity that is Alpharius Omegon, I'm trying to figure out the right words to describe this. So let me back up a little bit. Alpharius is the only twin Primarch. And it was speculated for a while that the Emperor himself did not know he had created a twin. Now, we know now in present 40k lore, the Emperor is well aware of Omegon. But in the beginning, that I don't think, from what I've read in the Horus Heresy, that the Emperor knew about having a twin. That there were actually 21 Primarchs instead of 20. So the Alpha Legion is a legion of secrecy. They're a legion of espionage. So what is the human condition that's being exploited here? Secrets and lies, secrets and lies. There are people out there who live their lives from a position of not letting other people in, of not letting people know, of holding, what do we call it, holding your cards close to your chest, so that people don't know your next move. They don't know what's going on, what's happening, the whys of things. They were basically the spies of Legion, but much broader than that. It's so grand what the Alpha Legion created. There's actually a particular story in the Primarchs. Actually, I'm going to look it up real quick. So there's a novel in the Horus Heresy called The Primarchs. It's the first Primarch-focused, only Primarch book, I think. There's other ones about Primarchs like Fulgrim and Vulcan Lives and all that, but like this book is just an anthology of Primarch stories. Not the first overall, but just in the Horus Heresy series. I think it's book 20, if I'm not mistaken. Read it. But the last story is called The Serpent Beneath. And it's really more about Omegon than Alpharius. The reason that Alpha Legion is able to enact incredible subterfuge is Alpharius has created a legion. Remember this picture? Look at this. they are all the same dude. Remember, their gene implantation has the highest success rate. So it doesn't just make great soldiers, it makes great copies of soldiers. They are the same dude for all intents and purposes. And some of the legionaries with their gene implantation grow to be so large that they can be mistaken as a Primarch. Because remember, the Space Marines are already demigods to regular humans. Like, I'm 6'1". Average Space Marine is 4 feet taller than me. But the Primarchs are 4 and 5 feet taller than the Space Marines. And then the power armor and everything else. These are behemoths of men. Behemoths. That's the only way to describe them. Then they got the nerve to put on armor. You got the nerve to wear heels with all that height. That's what I hear all the time. But these are grand, statuesque beings. And the average legionary still looks up to a Primarch, as grand as they are. But that Alpha Legion gene seed does something different. It's the purest, it's the best gene seed. And Alpharius is he's able to make copies of himself. So to be quite clear, no one ever knows if they are talking to Alpharius or Omegon, if they ever encounter them. And if they think they're talking to Alpharius or Omegon, it could be another legionary. And that's what happens in the Primarch. Spoiler warning. Go get the book. It's great. But in this book, it's got such a reveal. Yeah, I'm spoiling a whole reveal. I'm telling you again. Skip like 3 minutes. 4 minutes maybe, because she talks. But at the end of this adventure, there is an outpost that the Alpha Legion once used. They need to destroy it now, basically. That's the end of. And Omegon is going to head this mission, and they go and get a psychic that they need who's very powerful to help shield them while they're in there, because there's a Xenos force that's taken over. They can get past them and destroy the whole thing. Unbeknownst to anyone who was going on the mission, that this they ain't coming back from this mission. And they go and get the Zyker. I remember her name, and I read this one years ago, so if I get a detail wrong, forgive me, but I haven't read this one in a long time. But her name is Zelma Gundi. The reason I remember that is because my grandmother's name is Zelma. but Zelma Gundi. But she was taken with the Alpha Legion from her hive world to be a part of this mission. Nobody makes it, just no one makes it. They're not supposed to. But the detachment that goes on this mission thinks they are going with Omegon. And it is later revealed at the end of all things that it was actually a legionary who passes for Alpharius. If he can pass for Omegon, he can pass for Alpharius. That's how little anyone knows. Even within their own legion, they don't know what their Primarch looks like. And the ones who do know, is probably because they are the perfect copies, and if they need them to stand in, they can just go, you go over here, because if a bomb gets dropped, I'm not going to be there. I'm the Primarch. So, and they operate in secrecy. And this, actually, it's interesting because their turn to chaos is not like the rest of them. So into my favorite Warhammer character, who is not a Legione anything. yeah, he's your favorite of mine. Not Eisenhorn. I do love me some Eisenhorn. And he's a controversial character. Not everybody loves him, but I do. I read all my novels looking for this man. John Grammaticus, the Perpetual. The only one of 3 Perpetuals in the heresy level of things that we know about. The Emperor, Vulcan, and John Grammaticus, meaning they are the always alive. If their physical form gets destroyed, they just come right back. And as far as we know, John Grammaticus in age is closest to the Emperor. The Emperor once actually recognized this man. I picked him out of crowd and went, we're the same. Ain't seen him 10,000 years since, but yeah, John Grammaticus and the Emperor, as far as current times, are both walking around right now. As far as the lore goes, they are both alive in current day and will be alive in 30. Well, I don't know if John Grammaticus makes it to 40K. I refuse to find out. And don't you tell me, I will delete the comment. But John Grammaticus works for the Cabal, the Xenos cohort that is out there trying to prevent the humans from taking over the galaxy and ruining everything. Which, to be fair, Eldar done kicked in Chaos Door too, so quit looking into the future, Eldar. If you didn't know, would it have happened? There's a question for the ages. But over time, John Grammaticus believes the Cabal, and even though he is human, he works for the Cabal against humanity. But he does have a turn where he wants to save Vulcan from his demise, from his perpetual torture that he's going through. Like, his heart starts breaking for humanity again, and he doesn't want to keep working for the Cabal. But one of the jobs they send him on, and Vulcan lives and going to see Rabute and all this kind of stuff, is to seek out a meeting with Alpharius Omegon. The Eldar are aware that there's two of them. And I did a reading in that novel a while back, but John Grammaticus spends a long time trying to get their attention. And he finally does during the evacuation of a world. And they basically come to him, which is the only way you're going to get the Alpha Legion to come see you. They come to him, and they're like, you've been trying to get our attention. He's like, yes, please don't kill me. And he delivers the message of the Cabal. And the Cabal informs Alpharius and Omegon together that the Emperor's path is going to lead the humans to folly. That ultimately what's going to happen if the Emperor is allowed to fulfill his great plan of conquering the galaxy is that the galaxy will burn because of humanity, and that the Emperor must be saved from himself. And even though technically they are traitors, I think they are traitors who are the most loyal. And this again is that human quality. How many people do the wrong thing for the right reason? There are people who do things that might in proper society be considered not the correct path to have taken. But their heart was in the right place. Kind of like, let's use an innocent example. A child who wants to bring their mommy flowers, but they pick them out of the neighbor's garden. Alpharius listens to what the Cabal has to say, while John Grammaticus looks on. And in being persuaded that the Cabal is correct, what they've really been persuaded of is they now have the mission to save the father from that which their father is unaware he needs saving from. Saving people from themselves is another human quality. Y'all done heard the phrase, oh, he out there being Captain Save-A-Ho. Like, oh, she out there trying to change this man to be something he's not. That was the folly of the Alpha Legion. Because they thrived in secrecy. They thrived in coercion. They were a legion who won wars by toppling governments from the inside. They could create so much chaos from within, they may never have had to fire a single shot because governments would shut themselves down because they got in their heads that much. That is who the Alpha Legion is. Nobody even knew the Alpha Legion if they were coming until they showed up. And even then, you didn't know who you were fighting with. They didn't make friends with other legions. That breaks the secrecy. Their indoctrination level, all the legions are indoctrinated, but this goes beyond even what the Inquisition does to their. This goes beyond what the sororitas do to their novitiates, and the sororitas are all in. They are all in. But the Alpha Legion, it's hard to explain how loyal this legion is to their Primarch. They are basically a hive mind at this point. They are an entity unto themselves. And when something like that nobody knows how powerful it is, nobody knows how big this legion is. Is it 2,000 legionaries? Is it 100,000 legionaries? Nobody knows. Could be 1 million of them. No one knows. And even if it's only a couple thousand, it's a couple of thousand of super loyal clones. They're gonna do what the Primarch says, period, point blank, no questions asked. And they're like shadows. They're like Drax. Can you see me? I'm moving too slow. You can't see me. They're all invisible all the time, and yet in full face all the time. They are an enigma wrapped in a mystery. And John Grammaticus found them, which should tell you something about John Grammaticus. I mean, I guess you don't live for 20,000 years and not learn a trick or two about how to attract attention. This is the legion that listened to the cabal. And I firmly believe their heart was in the right place. But hearts can be in the right place and still lead you to the wrong place. I mean, the heart is treacherous above all things. Who can know it? Friends, when we make decisions based on how we feel, feelings are temporary. Feelings will change. Feelings are like my hair color. It's purple and blue today. It could be pink tomorrow. It could be yellow. Who knows? It could be an afro. We don't make permanent decisions based on temporary circumstances and emotions. But in a moment, the Alpha Legion was convinced that it was their duty to save their father from himself. And the Legion of espionage, of secrecy, of backstabbery, because they'll sacrifice any of them. They treat them like lemmings. And the Alpha Legion, like, oh, we lost 10,000 men? Meh. That's literally how they are. Like, we'll make more. This is the Legion that decided, okay, we're going to save Dad. We're going to save him. But you know what you can't do? You can never convince a person against what they already believe. You want proof? It's election season. That's the most I'm going to say about that. But it doesn't matter what people think and feel. There is no amount of data. There's no amount of speech. There's no amount of anything you can throw at a person to convince them other than what they've already convinced themselves. And once the Alpha Legion convinced themselves they were right, their path to chaos was laid. They're going to change history. They're going to change the future. They're going to change their father. No, they weren't. You're not going to change that person. People show up the way they are. The good thing about getting married later in life, you know, me and my husband, we both have one marriage under our belt. I joke all the time, oh, everybody get a practice marriage now. I got married when I was 18. It wasn't going to work. You know, there's nothing wrong with the young man I married. It's just we were not meant to be together for 40 years. But we got married at an age where we were established humans who are who we are. We have grown up. We have grown out. We like the person who was presented to us. For me, there was nothing to change. For him, there's nothing to change. I do not need to mold this person. The reason younger couples are able to withstand so much together is because they are both still growing. But when people are already good and grown, good and done bacon, there's nothing to change. You accept people for who they are, not for who you want them to be. And if who they are is not who you want, spare both of you months and years of pain. Because you can't change people. Change comes from within, not without. And people who tend to follow their heart more than their brain, we love them too. There's room for all of them. But emotional decisions are rarely the right decision. Rarely. Because there's so much more that goes into a moment that has a lasting effect. That's why we don't let young people rent cars. Because when they are of a certain age, you know, they're making bad decisions with vehicles, more than likely. So we don't let under 25s rent cars. That's why there is an age to consume certain beverages, because you are a little too young. Because until a certain age, there is no foresight in a person. The brain has not developed enough for the brain to go, oh, there is a consequence to my action. You don't believe me? Go hang out with teenagers for 20 minutes. Don't. That's too big a problem on YouTube. Don't do that. But that's why we don't allow certain decisions to let children make them, because they don't know there's going to be a consequence for their actions. That's why we tell kids what to do, because they don't know what to do. You can't change a person who is good and grown and good and established. And actually, my studies for my degree, a lot of what I read said that most of who a person is established by the time they're like 3. So when I say you can't change somebody, you can't change them. They are who they are. You get a kid that didn't turn out the way you wanted. 1, genes. But 2, they are who they are. Learn how to work with them within the parameters of who they are, not in the way that you wish they were. You cannot turn somebody into something they're not. And when you do, when you try to make somebody something they're not to please you, that's how the fight started. There, that's my sermon for the day. Alpharius and Omegon believe they can change the fate of humanity, and their father, they think they can change him. You can't change anyone who does not want to change. The Emperor is the longest lived human, God, and believes he is right, and he's going to continue on his course. He doesn't believe his favorite son betrayed him until he watches him kill his most beautiful son, Sanguinius. He doesn't believe Horus is a traitor until he sees Horus in the midst of battle of sieging Terra raise up Sanguinius, the angel, over his head and crack his back on his knee. That's when the Emperor goes, oh, my boy done gone wild. It took all that. It took all that. That's what I mean when I say you can't change somebody. It has to come from within. They have to see and experience. That's why you can't tell young people anything. You have to guide them on the path. We don't want them to make our mistakes, but guess what? Our parents didn't want us to make our mistakes either, because it's through the mistakes that we learn. It's through the mistakes that we grow. It's having the scars and the bruises to look back and go, probably shouldn't do that again. Everyone deserves their experience. You deserve your experience. I love the Alpha Legion because they are so committed, like Lorgar. So committed. They were just committed to the wrong thing. The Primarch, Alpharius Omegon. Of the many mysteries that surround the 20th Legion, the most fundamental and key enigma is the question of its Primarch. Multiple conflicting reports speak of Alpharius' rediscovery from the Emperor's rescuing him from Xenos enslavement. Those claiming he boarded Horus's flagship in a calculated raid only to meet his kin by chance, to those daring to suggest he was not scattered as his brothers, were but grew into maturity on Terra alongside the Emperor. All accounts are such lies. It is widely believed that on diverse occasions, members of his legion each claim not only Alpharius' name, but also his identity, even in the council with allied legions and emissaries of the imperial court. Some have made the outlandish claim that there was more than one Primarch of the Alpha Legion, or that Alpharius was even somehow able to duplicate himself physically and appear to be in more than one location simultaneously. Some have even attributed metaphor hidden in plain sight to emblem of the three-headed Hydra that later came to symbolize the Legion in its regard. Furthering this mystery and the outright deception perpetrated by Alpharius, many reliable reports of the Primarch's physical appearance differ. While he is noted on many occasions to be of a similar stature and countenance of any of his legionaries and able to pass unnoticed in their ranks, others' records show him as towering and fearful, bedecked in sinisterly ornate Hydra-chased battle plates. Say that 3 times fast. Whatever the case, contemporary accounts record Alpharius as being the last Primarch to rejoin his legion and describe him as a masterful tactician, strategist. His erudition was astounding, and his great intelligence was as cool and as watchful as a viper's gaze. Sorry, y'all, my mouth got a little dry. Stay hydrated. Does Omegon even exist, or just someone that Alpharius made up? The lore of this legion is so intense. One video could never do it justice. Look at that. I've been talking for 40 minutes. She can talk, y'all. I'm paid to talk. It's my job. So I'm real good at it. You can't change people. And anything that has to be kept secret, it's probably a bad decision. You dating somebody and you can't tell nobody about them? They ain't the one. Not them. You can't introduce them to your friends? Not the one. You know, you done picked a new hobby and you can't tell nobody about it? What is this hobby? Got a box of rat heads under the bed? I'm joking. But you can't change people. And even the most earnest of wishes, even if they come from the right place, we have to make sure not to let our hearts lead our heads. The head has to lead the heart, because the heart It changes. Feelings change. Moments change. We have to put ourselves to the practice of learning and growing so that this can guide this. You need both. Because when we have law without mercy, we become oppressive. When we have mercy without honor, we become reckless. You need heart and head together. And that is what we see in the legions. When we pick an extreme of the human condition and go down that path, we become unbalanced. And unbalance creates chaos. And chaos breeds war. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.